Many will pass by your life, glancing for a moment, then moving on. Their eyes don't linger, their minds don't stay. The truth is, no one is watching you as closely as you think, and that is your freedom. In the Shaolin Temple, we learn that when the crowd fades, your real journey begins. The worth of your life is not measured by applause or recognition, but by the depth of your own discipline. Alone in the quiet, you face the only opponent who matters, you. I am Heng. Today, I will guide you through a path few dare to walk. We will explore how indifference from the world can become your greatest ally. You will hear the principles the Shaolin monks have guarded for centuries. How to sharpen the mind like a blade, how to anchor your spirit in storms, and how to build a strength that no praise and no criticism can shake. We will speak of lessons hidden in the daily rituals of the temple, why a monk polishes the same wooden floor every morning without being told, why we bow to an empty training hall, why even in solitude we keep our back straight and our mind awake. These are not empty gestures. They are acts of mastery, seen by no one, yet shaping everything. Stay with me until the end, and you will leave with more than ideas. You will leave with tools you can use in the silence of your own life. Tools to turn neglect into focus, solitude into power, and the absence of applause into unshakable peace. Welcome to Shaolin Mind. If the path of inner strength calls to you, subscribe and walk it with us. Your journey begins here. The mind is like a candle in the wind, without shelter. Its flame flickers, sometimes wildly, sometimes softly, but never still. Most people live without ever noticing this restless dance. They are carried from one thought to the next, like dry leaves drifting in a river. In the temple, we are taught to watch the mind before we try to guide it. I remember my own master asking me, "Where was your mind just now?" I did not know. My body was kneeling before him, but my thoughts had wandered to tomorrow's training, to the ache in my legs, to the faint scent of incense in the hall. That was the first lesson, seeing how far the mind travels when left alone. Self-mastery begins here. Not with strength of body, not with knowledge of technique, but with awareness of thought. Every time you notice the mind drifting, you have a choice to let it run or to call it back. This calling back is not forceful. It is gentle, like guiding a young bird back to its nest. When we train, whether in still meditation or in moving forms, the same principle applies. The body moves, the breath flows, but the mind must remain present, anchored in the now. A wandering mind splits your energy. A steady mind gathers it. Over time, this practice changes more than your focus. It shapes the way you speak, the way you walk, the way you live. You stop being pulled by every distraction. You begin to act from the center, not from the noise around you. And in that quiet center, you find the part of yourself that no storm can touch. A river does not wait for rain to keep moving. It flows because that is its nature. In the same way, discipline must become part of who you are, not something borrowed from fleeting moods or the shifting approval of others. There are mornings when the air feels heavy, when the body resists rising, when the mind offers 100 excuses. In those moments, it is tempting to wait for the spark of motivation. But the ancients knew that waiting for inspiration is like waiting for the wind to push your boat. You may drift forever. In the Shaolin tradition, the practice is done not because the master is watching, nor because the world will applaud. It is done because the practice itself is the path. The repetition of forms, the steady breath, the daily bow, each is a stone placed on the road to mastery. Whether the world notices or turns away is irrelevant. There is a quiet power in moving forward unseen. When no one praises your effort, you learn to draw strength from within. When no one witnesses your struggle, you discover the purity of action without reward. This is where consistency becomes unshakable because it is no longer chained to external forces. Think of the bamboo that grows for years underground before it ever breaks the surface. Day after day, it gathers strength in silence, unseen by all. Then, when the time comes, it rises with a speed and strength that surprises those who never knew it was growing at all. So too with your own discipline. Act in silence. Train when the mood is absent. Build without witnesses. And one day, the strength you've cultivated will stand on its own, needing nothing but the will that forged it. It is easy to chase the noise of the world, to measure life by the echoes we receive back from others. Yet the masters speak of a quieter way, a path where worth is not measured by the voices outside, but by the depth of the silence within. In ancient times, a student would sweep the temple courtyard each morning, long before the elders awoke. No one thanked him. No one noticed the clean stones beneath their feet, yet the act was done with care, as though the entire world were watching. This was not about the courtyard. It was about the mind that learned to serve without seeking reward. Discipline in this way is like tending a fire that no one else can see. You keep it alive because it warms your own spirit, not because others gather around it. Day after day, you feed it with the small, deliberate acts that others overlook, acts that shape the unseen architecture of your character. When the sages spoke of mastery, they did not mean perfection. They meant the ability to return to the practice again and again without being swayed by the mood of the day or the opinion of the crowd. The bow, the breath, the stance, all repeated until they are no longer effort but nature. Such a life moves at a different rhythm. It is not hurried by ambition, nor slowed by doubt. It grows like a tree in a quiet forest, rooted deep, reaching high, whether or not anyone comes to admire it. In this there's a freedom greater than praise, the freedom to live and act for the sake of the path itself, knowing that the path is enough. There are times when the world feels uneven beneath your feet, when one part of life pulls too hard and another lies neglected. In those moments, frustration often tempts us to push harder in one direction, as if force could correct imbalance. But the Shaolin way begins elsewhere with stillness. Long ago, a monk was tasked with carrying 2 buckets of water from the river to the temple each day. One bucket was heavier than the other, and so he would arrive with wet clothes, sore shoulders, and aching arms. For weeks he endured this without question. Then, one morning, his master simply asked, "Why do you fight the weight instead of balancing it?" The monk adjusted the rope, redistributed the load, and the strain vanished. Life is much the same. When the mind is pulled into constant doing, the body suffers. When the body is overworked, the mind grows restless. When ambition consumes all space, relationships wither. The imbalance may be small, but over time it wears at the spirit. Observation is the first step, not judgment, not blame, only clear seeing. From there comes gentle adjustment. Sometimes it means rising earlier to breathe before the day begins. Sometimes it means slowing the pace, allowing space for rest. Sometimes it means letting go of something that once mattered but no longer serves. In the harmony that follows, strength returns. Energy flows evenly, like water finding its natural course. There is no longer the strain of dragging one part of life while neglecting another. Instead, there is a quiet steadiness, a rhythm that feels both grounded and free. This is the alignment the ancients spoke of, not a rigid balance, but a living one, constantly observed, constantly renewed. Every movement tells a story. In Kung Fu and Qigong, the story is not just about strength or speed, it is about the mind that guides the body. A punch thrown in haste reveals impatience. A stance held without focus reveals distraction. The form mirrors the formless, showing the truth of what lies within. In the old training halls, a student might spend months perfecting a single step. To outsiders, it could seem excessive, but the masters understood if the step is unstable, the entire form is unstable. If the mind wavers during that step, the intention will waver in every movement that follows. Pushing the body is only part of the path. The greater challenge is to observe without judgment. When the arms tire, notice the thoughts that arise, complaints, doubt, urgency. When the breath shortens, watch the instinct to rush. The physical strain becomes a mirror, reflecting habits of the spirit. In Qigong, the slowness is deliberate. Each posture flows into the next, like water circling stones. The body softens even as the mind sharpens. You begin to see how tension in the shoulders might come from tension in the heart, or how an unsteady stance might be rooted in an unsettled thought. Through gentle yet persistent practice, these reflections turn into insights. You stop trying to conquer the body and start listening to it. You stop forcing the mind and start guiding it with steadiness. Over time, the inner and outer no longer feel separate. A balanced mind produces balanced movement. A calm breath steadies the strike, and the practice becomes more than martial skill. It becomes a way to live with clarity, strength, and quiet purpose. The Shaolin path is not a single stream. It is a confluence of rivers, each carrying its own wisdom. From Buddhism comes compassion and the understanding that all beings share the same root of suffering and joy. From Daoism flows the lesson of harmony, the art of moving with the currents of life rather than against them. From Confucianism arises the call to live with integrity, to honor responsibility and cultivate virtue in daily actions. And from meditation comes the stillness to see all of these truths clearly. It is a common mistake to think of the Shaolin way as only discipline and hardship. Yes, there is discipline, but it is not born of cruelty toward the self. It is a discipline that protects, nourishes, and refines. The monk who trains for hours under the morning sun also tends to his body with careful rest and nourishing food. The one who rises before dawn to meditate also speaks with kindness to those he meets. In this way, strength and gentleness are never in conflict. The body may be forged through rigorous practice, but the heart remains soft, open, and capable of empathy. The mind is sharpened not to dominate, but to serve clarity and wisdom. These traditions remind us that mastery is not measured by how much we can endure, but by how balanced we can remain while walking the path. A life lived in alignment with these principles does not harden into pride or collapse into passivity. It moves steadily between firmness and flexibility, action and rest, solitude and service. The Shaolin path, in its fullness, is not about becoming unbreakable. It is about becoming whole, so that strength and compassion stand together in every step you take. There is a moment in deep meditation when the sense of I begins to loosen. The boundaries between self and world grow thin, like mist dissolving in the morning sun. This is the teaching of Shi, the great Buddhist master, to see the emptiness of a fixed self, not as a denial of existence, but as a release from the tight grip of identity. When the self is seen as fluid, the constant need to defend, compare, and prove begins to fade. Anger finds less fuel. Fear has fewer walls to hide behind. In this emptiness, there is a lightness. Life moves more freely through you. But the path does not end in detachment. Z spoke of returning, of stepping back into the marketplace of life with the same open hands. This is the dance, emptiness, and engagement, stillness and participation. Without emptiness, the self clings and narrows. Without engagement, compassion has no place to serve. It is like a warrior laying down his sword after battle, not to abandon skill, but to walk among the people with a calm heart. The training is still there, the awareness still sharp, but the energy is no longer bound to the armor of me and mine. In daily life, this means you can meet others without the burden of constant self-concern. You can listen without planning your reply. You can work without making your worth depend on the result. The self becomes a tool you can pick up or put down as needed, rather than a cage you must live inside. Through this rhythm of release and return, presence deepens. You are no longer lost in the story of who you think you are. You are simply here, awake, and ready for the next step. They say a single drop of water holds the reflection of the moon. In the same way, Shaolin philosophy speaks of one thought containing 3,000 worlds. It is a reminder that even the smallest moment can hold the depth of the universe. In training, this truth reveals itself in subtle ways. A single breath taken with full awareness can steady the body and quiet the mind. A single movement, executed with intention, can carry the essence of years of practice. The quality of that moment ripples outward, shaping the next breath, the next step, the next choice. The ancients understood that we often overlook the power of what is near because we are chasing what is far. We think mastery lies somewhere ahead, hidden in grand achievements, yet the entire path is contained in the step we are taking now. One thought of kindness can alter the course of a conversation. One moment of patience can dissolve a rising conflict. One deep breath can keep you from speaking words that would be hard to take back. In these small instances, the whole of your training, your discipline, and your understanding can manifest. It is like tending a garden. You may focus on the season's harvest, but the health of the crop depends on the care given to a single seed, planted and watered today. Each act contains the potential for countless outcomes, just as each thought holds the seeds of many worlds. To live with this awareness is to walk more slowly, to see more clearly, to value the present as much as the destination. For in the Shaolin way, the infinite is not far away, it is already here, waiting in the smallest corner of this very moment. A restless mind can feel like a horse running without reins, fast, unpredictable, and exhausting. The Shaolin tradition does not try to overpower this wildness with sheer will. Instead, it offers simple, grounded tools to guide the mind back to stillness. Breathing is the first. Slow, deliberate breaths anchor you to the present. Inhale as though drawing in the strength of the earth. Exhale as though releasing the weight of 1,000 thoughts. The body begins to settle, and with it, the mind follows. Posture is the second. The way you hold yourself shapes the way you think. In the temple, even during moments of rest, the back remains upright, the head gently lifted. This is not just for discipline, it is a reminder to stay awake in body and spirit. A balanced posture signals to the mind that it too can find balance. Repetition is the third. Whether it is a form practiced 100 times or a mantra whispered silently, the rhythm trains the mind to move in harmony with the present, like waves smoothing the shore. Repetition wears away the rough edges of distraction. None of these tools are hidden behind mystery or ritual. They are as close as your next breath, as natural as the way you stand, as familiar as a movement you know by heart. The key is to use them not only in the quiet of training, but in the noise of daily life, when the mind is crowded, when the heart is unsettled. Through these simple acts, you learn that calm is not a gift from the world around you. It is something you can create, moment by moment, with the tools you already carry. In the art of Shaolin Weng Chun, the practice does not end when the training hall grows quiet. True mastery is not measured by the precision of a strike or the depth of a stance alone. It is revealed in the way you live when no one is watching. To live Kung Fu is to allow the principles learned in movement to flow into every part of life. Discipline is not only the willingness to train each day, it is the ability to keep your word, to finish what you begin, to meet challenges without retreat. Respect is not confined to bowing before a master. It is shown in how you speak, how you listen, and how you treat those who cannot offer you anything in return. Right action, a cornerstone of this path, means acting in alignment with both skill and virtue. In combat, it is knowing when to strike and when to step back. In daily life, it is choosing honesty when deceit might be easier. Choosing patience when frustration tempts you to act in haste. The old masters often said, "Your training is in your breath, your eyes, your walk." This means that the essence of Kung Fu is not something you take off with your uniform. It should be present in the way you greet a neighbor, the way you handle setbacks, the way you carry yourself through the smallest tasks. Weng Chun teaches that when these qualities, discipline, respect, and right action become second nature, you no longer do Kung Fu. You are Kung Fu. Every choice becomes a form. Every step becomes a stance. Every word becomes an expression of the same harmony and strength you practice on the training floor. This is mastery that lives beyond technique. It lives in you. There is a quiet liberation in realizing how little the world is watching. Most people are absorbed in their own concerns, their own joys and troubles. Your failures are rarely remembered for long, and your successes fade quickly from view. At first, this may feel like neglect, but to the one seeking mastery, it is a gift. When the weight of constant observation lifts, the steps you take are no longer shaped by fear of judgment or hunger for praise. You can move without hesitation, try without the shadow of expectation. Mistakes become part of the learning, not marks against your worth. In the Shaolin tradition, this freedom is deeply valued. A student training in the corner of the hall is not performing for others. They are refining themselves. There is no applause for holding a stance until the legs tremble, nor for rising before dawn to meditate. Yet these are the moments when real growth takes root, when the only witness is your own awareness. Without the pressure to prove, you can follow the path with greater honesty. You may explore a new technique simply to understand it, not to show it. You may deepen your breath, not for display, but for the stillness it brings. The path becomes less about reaching a destination and more about inhabiting each step fully. The old masters taught that the truest achievements are invisible, carried quietly within. Strength that does not need to be shown. Peace that does not need to be announced. These are the treasures of a life lived for its own sake. When no one is watching, you are free to practice for the pure joy of the practice. And in that freedom, mastery finds its most natural home. When the noise of the world fades, you are left with the simplest truth. Your life is yours to shape. In the Shaolin way, this is not a burden, but a rare and precious freedom. Without the pull of constant attention, you can move with greater honesty, listen more deeply, and act from a place untouched by the shifting winds of opinion. Every moment becomes a chance to practice, not just in the training hall, but in the way you speak, walk, and breathe. This is how presence is built, layer by layer, until it becomes the quiet strength you carry everywhere. So, as you step back into your own day, let these teachings guide you. Train your mind to return to the present. Act with consistency, whether or not anyone sees. Bring balance where there is strain. Let compassion and discipline walk side by side. And above all, remember that mastery is not something you perform. It is something you live. May your path be steady, your heart open, and your attention anchored in the richness of now. If this journey speaks to you, like this video, share it with others who seek the same clarity, and subscribe to Shaolin Mind. Together, we will walk the path of quiet strength.